Imagine two cucumber seeds, planted in the same soil, on the same morning. They get the same sun, the same rain, the same care. Yet, weeks later, one is a struggling yellowing vine, and the other is a monster. Thick as a rope, leaves dark and broad as plates, a cascade of fruit so heavy, it threatens to pull the entire trellis down. The only difference? A single quart of a homemade brew, poured once at its roots, a bubbling mixture of baker's yeast, sugar, and water. This isn't a theory. It's a documented fact, logged in a gardener's notebook, proven on a scale. The yield wasn't just better. It was triple. This is the story of the biological catalyst you cannot buy, because living things don't belong on a shelf. This is about what happens when you wake up the soil with a $1 packet of yeast. The experiment is stark in its simplicity. 2 seeds, 2 pots, 1 variable. The gardener's log begins on a cool May morning. By day 7, the intervention: 1 seedling gets plain water. Its twin gets the yeast brew, just once. The notes from day 12 read: Plant A, control, 8 inches tall, leaves pale, edges curling, struggling. And for plant B, 14 inches. Unreal. New leaves are a glossy, violent green, growing like it's possessed. It becomes a daily race. Day 15, plant B hits 18 inches, throwing out side shoots. Day 20, the first flowers. Day 28, the control plant is spindly, knee-high. The yeast-fed plant is a beast, 40 inches tall, its stem thick as a broom handle, blooming with a reckless abundance. The log notes, with a sense of urgency, had to add a second stake. Vine is too heavy. Cannot believe this. Harvest day tells the final tale. The control: 3 modest cucumbers, under a pound total. The yeast-fed twin: 9 deep green firm fruits, 3.1 pounds. The numbers are there in black and white, no special soil, no secret compost, just yeast, sugar, water, and a yield multiplied by 3. The gardener's final note captures the disbelief. Same seeds, same care. The only difference was the yeast, but here's what the logbook doesn't show: the quiet panic of the neighboring plant. Think of it from the perspective of the control vine. One day, it's growing in peaceful equality with its twin. The next, it's sharing soil with a biological freight train. The yeast-fed plant isn't just growing for itself. It's broadcasting a powerful chemical and hormonal declaration of war. Its massive, newly energized root system becomes a hyper-aggressive scavenger, pulling water and nutrients from a shared zone with terrifying new efficiency. It's not a fair fight anymore. The yeast has given one plant a profound territorial advantage, a root-level dominance that the untreated plant simply cannot match. This is the hidden competitive drama unfolding beneath the soil. The struggling plant isn't just failing to thrive, it's being actively starved and overshadowed by its supercharged sibling. This single watering didn't just feed a plant, it created a champion and a casualty in the same patch of earth. It proves that in the garden, as in nature, advantage is everything. And the most decisive advantage isn't a slow-release fertilizer pellet. It's a living, multiplying signal that commands the soil itself. This is not a new secret. It's an ancient practice, rediscovered in a jar on a kitchen counter. In the hills of South Korea, farmers ferment wild grasses with brown sugar to create fermented plant juice, a living elixir splashed on fields to spark growth and resilience. The Jadam method simplifies it further: rice wash water and sugar, left to bubble, building a potent microbial culture in days. In English cottage gardens for generations they've filled barrels with comfrey leaves and water, watching it froth and darken into a potent potassium-rich tea for tomatoes and beans. Even in Soviet-era Dakas, handwritten manuals described yeasty ferments for feeding plants when commercial fertilizers were scarce. What unites these traditions across continents and centuries is a shared understanding: a bubbling living ferment does something a bottled chemical cannot. It speaks to the soil, it wakes it up. The yeast and sugar brew is not a modern hack. It is the simplest, fastest echo of that global legacy. From Korean rice paddies to English allotments, The principle is the same, and now it starts with a packet of baker's yeast from the back of your pantry. The workshop is your kitchen. The recipe, absurdly simple. 1 tablespoon of dry active baker's yeast, any brand, even the expired one. 2 tablespoons of plain white sugar. 1 quart of warm water, not hot, not cold, just comfortably warm to the touch. Stir. The chemistry begins instantly. The yeast, a dormant, dusty powder, wakes to the sugar's call. But why sugar? Plain white table sugar isn't here for sweetness. It's the fundamental fuel for the entire reaction. Scientifically, it's sucrose, a disaccharide. The yeast's first job is to secrete an enzyme called invertase, which cleaves that sucrose into its 2 simpler components, glucose and fructose. This is the ignition. These simple sugars are what the yeast cells actually consume in a rapid, oxygen-fueled frenzy of multiplication. This explosive growth phase is critical because it's during this period of peak population boom that the yeast produces the highest concentration of those precious growth hormones and metabolites that will later benefit your plants. Using molasses or honey introduces complex minerals and compounds that can slow this specific targeted multiplication. Pure white sugar provides the cleanest, fastest burn, a sprint, not a marathon, resulting in a brew with maximum hormonal punch. The sugar isn't food for your plants. It is the rocket fuel for the microbial workforce you're about to deploy. You are, in essence, running a controlled, high-intensity fermentation whose sole purpose is to generate a dense population of yeast at the peak of its metabolic power, and then you deploy that entire living army directly to the root zone. Place a lid on the jar, but do not seal it. This is living, breathing chemistry. Trapped gas could make it explode. Let it sit. 2 hours minimum. Overnight is better. You are waiting for the sign of life, a thick, frothy foam atop the liquid, like the head on a freshly poured beer. That foam is your proof. Billions of Saccharomyces cerevisiae cells are now awake, multiplying, fermenting, producing a cocktail of compounds that plants recognize as potent signals. This is your concentrated brew. Never ever pour it straight onto plants. It is far too powerful. Instead, dilute the entire quart into a 5-gallon bucket of water. This is your elixir. Stir well, and use it immediately. The entire process costs less than $1 and takes an afternoon. You have just created a living fertilizer that no corporation can bottle and sell. To understand why this works, you have to think microscopically. When that yeast brew hits the soil, it does several things at once. First, the living and dying yeast cells release a burst of readily available nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, in forms plant roots can absorb immediately. They act as a direct feed. But more importantly, the yeast produces natural plant hormones, cytokinins and auxins. To a root, these are growth signals, a direct command to divide cells and expand. The root system explodes in size and density, becoming a vastly more efficient water and mineral mining network. That massive root foundation is what supports the explosive growth you see above ground. Furthermore, this yeast colony becomes a protective barrier. It colonizes the root zone, outcompeting harmful fungi and bacteria for space and resources. It's a probiotic shield for your plants. The benefits are documented in trials. Crops treated with yeast solutions showed yield increases of 20 to 30%. They also showed greater drought resistance and faster recovery from stress. This isn't magic. It's microbiology in action. You are not just feeding the plant, you are activating the entire root environment. Now the basic brew is powerful, but you can turn it into a complete balanced superfeed with a few household additives, each targeting a specific need. Think of it as building the perfect meal. First, wood ash. Sifted from a clean fireplace, it's packed with potassium, the element for strong stems, efficient water movement and heavy fruit setting. Add 1 to 2 cups to your 5-gallon bucket. Not more. Potassium is crucial, but balance is everything. Next, Epsom salt, magnesium sulfate. Just 1 tablespoon per batch. Magnesium is the central atom in every chlorophyll molecule. It's what gives leaves that deep, lush green color and drives photosynthesis. Finally, for strength, calcium, 2 tablespoons of finely ground eggshell powder. Calcium builds strong cell walls, preventing blossom end rot and creating sturdier plants. The mild acidity of the yeast brew helps break it down. This enhanced recipe, yeast sugar, ash, Epsom salt, eggshell, delivers a full-spectrum potassium for fruit, magnesium for leaves, calcium for structure, all carried by a living bioactive solution. It rivals any $100 bottle of boutique fertilizer for pennies. So why won't you find this on a garden center shelf? The answer is in the foam. Biology is messy and perishable. Living yeast never stops working. In a sealed bottle, the carbon dioxide from fermentation builds until the container swells, leaks or bursts. Commercial fertilizers are based on stable inert salts, dead minerals that can sit for years. They can be patented, branded, and shipped globally. A living yeast brew has a shelf life of days. It defies the entire model of industrial agriculture. They cannot box it, mark it up, and sell it to you. The economics won't allow it. But you can make it, for less than $1. This is the profound gap between industrial agribusiness and real, hands-in-the-soil gardening. The most powerful growth catalyst available cannot be sold. It must be created. And that places the power directly into your hands. Let's be clear about expectations. The 6-foot cucumber vine is the spectacular outlier, the result of perfect conditions meeting this biological spark. For most, the gain is significant but measured. Think 20 to 30%, 5 tomatoes instead of 4, an extra pound of peppers per plant. Over an entire garden, that's a transformative increase. Safety is paramount. This brew is potent. The rule is once, maybe twice a month. More is not better. It can overwhelm young roots or attract pests. Always test. Treat one plant, wait a week, watch for that surge of deep green growth. If you see leaf tip burn or wilting, your dilution is too strong or your soil is already rich. Adjust. The response varies. Poor, tired soil will sing with dramatic results. Already fertile soil may show a subtler but vital boost in plant health and resilience. Leafy greens and fruiting vegetables, cucumbers, tomatoes, peppers, squash, respond most dramatically. So when is the absolute best moment to deploy this brew? Timing isn't just important, it's the multiplier. Pour it at the wrong moment, and you waste its potential. Apply it at the right signal, and you lock in explosive gains. The first and most critical window is at transplant shock. When you move a seedling from the cozy cup to the open garden, its world is shattered. Growth pauses for days as it desperately repairs roots. This is your moment of maximum leverage. Watering it in with the yeast brew does two things. It provides an instant, gentle nutrient soup to ease the stress, and more crucially, it immediately inoculates the new root zone with those growth-signaling hormones. Instead of recovering, the plant hits the ground sprinting, establishing a dominant root foundation before it ever shows a single new leaf above ground. The second window is at the first bud set. When you see the first tiny flower buds form, not when they're open but when they're just swollen green promises, that is the plant shifting its entire energy budget from building stems and leaves to creating fruit. It is a hormonal pivot point. Applying the yeast brew here delivers a massive reinforcement of that signal. It tells the roots now. Support this, fuel this. The result is more flowers, better pollination, and a dramatic reduction in blossom drop. The plant commits to its harvest with total confidence. And a final overlooked application, the mid-season revival. Around midsummer, especially for heavy feeders like tomatoes and corn, you might see a slight paling of leaves, a slowing of growth. The plant has mined the easily available nutrients from its immediate root zone. A single application of the enhanced brew, with its wood ash and eggshell, acts as a strategic resupply. It's not constant feeding, it's a targeted, living reinforcement at the precise moments the plant is making its most important decisions, to establish, to flower, and to persist. This isn't guesswork. It is the art of speaking the plant's language, and answering at the very moment it asks the question. In the end, this is about more than cucumbers. It's about a fundamental choice in how we see the world beneath our feet. For decades, the gardening mantra has been feed the plant. We've treated soil as a sterile medium, a simple anchor, and plants as passive machines to which we must add the correct chemical fuel. We've managed deficiencies with bottles, treating symptoms in isolation. This approach works, but it creates dependency. It's a transaction. You pay, you pour, you get a result. The soil remains silent, an inert bystander. The yeast brew represents a different paradigm entirely. Feed the system. You are not adding a food, you are adding a leader, a catalyst. A single simple organism that rallies the entire soil community. It jump-starts the native bacteria, stimulates the mycorrhizal fungi that might be dormant, and creates a bustling cooperative economy around the roots. You are not playing the role of a chemist, but of a conductor, cueing the orchestra that was always there. The yield is not a product of what you gave, but of what you allowed to happen. The difference is profound. One method creates a cycle of purchase and application. The other initiates a cycle of life and reciprocity. The soil is no longer a warehouse of ingredients. It becomes a living, breathing partner. This is the real tripling of your yield. You gain not just more fruit but more understanding, more resilience, and a garden that grows not just because of you but because of a world you helped awaken. Today, global chemical fertilizer sales are a multi-billion-dollar monument to our separation from the soil's natural processes. But as costs rise and the environmental toll becomes clearer, the alternative isn't a step backward, it's a step deeper. It's recognizing that the most sophisticated technology on Earth is already present in a handful of healthy soil. The yeast brew is a key to turn that system on. It is an invitation to a living experiment. One you can start this afternoon. With a jar, some yeast and a spoonful of sugar. You are not just feeding a plant, you are cultivating an ecosystem. You are partnering with a force that has nurtured life for millennia. The results are waiting, not in a store aisle but in the quiet, bubbling fermentation on your counter, and in the explosive, verdant growth that will follow in your garden. The question is no longer if it works. The evidence is in the logbook, on the scale, in the science. The real question is, what will you grow with it? If you try this experiment, we want to see it. Document your results. Share your story. Tag us, and use the hashtag #yeastexperiment. For more deep dives into the science of simple gardening, and to see the results from growers just like you, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Until next time, this is Purely Garden. Keep growing.